Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Rachel Ashby is a certified carnivore diet coach and a former podcast editor for Dr. Shawn Baker, one of the most popular advocates of the carnivore diet, who recently made his second appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. But let's be honest, most of you probably remember him from his appearance way back on episode 20 here on Boundless Body Radio. I think we have similar numbers to Joe Rogan. I may need to check that. Rachel loves to share her personal journey of how she accidentally stumbled upon the carnivore diet and how it completely transformed her health and happiness. From struggling with depression, anxiety, and weight gain, to finding mental clarity, vibrant energy, and effortless weight loss, Rachel's story is a testament to the power of a species-appropriate diet. Despite initial skepticism from friends and family, she has become a living example of the benefits of the carnivore lifestyle. Rachel is also delving into her new venture in creating clean skincare products from beef tallow. She is the founder and CEO of Tallow Glow, a line of non-toxic tallow products with clean ingredients, including British grass-fed beef tallow. You can find Rachel on Instagram at Carnivore Fitness and at tallow.glow. Rachel Ashby, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And that was such a good introduction that the job's done.
The job's done. You did so many cool things.
Yeah, you covered it all. That's amazing. Thank you.
I still remember the first time I was ever hosted on somebody's show and they read my introduction. I'm like, wow, that sounds so cool. I wish like every time I walked into a room, somebody could read it out. It sounds way cooler.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yesterday, I was doing a consultation for somebody who came across our website, and she is 29 years old, about to turn 30, and was just saying that, she hadn't been working out as consistently as she likes, and, just really low energy and wanted to have a bit more energy. She wanted to maybe lose a few pounds, and that would be a nice little bonus, but more than anything, just kind of at 29, turning 30, kind of feeling a little bit tired and not enough energy for the things that she likes. She told me that she also had a bit of a anemic issue from a recent blood lab. And I just asked her like, hey, what's your diet like? Do you like red meat in particular? And she said, yeah, I really love it. I didn't know if I was supposed to eat that or not. So I kind of told her about that. And I remember thinking back, like when I was that age, 29, 30, you and I are both 40. I believe you turned 40 this year. Is that right?
I did, yeah. Well, last year now, yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of year.
Okay, yeah. To think back on like when I turned 30, about that same age, on how I felt back then versus the way I feel now being 10 years older, I'm so excited for this person, whether they go carnivore or not, but just to start to get some good information about workouts and about nutrition to like we said in your introduction, to transform your life and all of a sudden feel this like amazing amount of energy all the time. It's so awesome. I think we take it for granted after we've done this for as long as we have.
I think we do, yeah. It's funny because people say to me, oh, but what did you change with your health? But it's been so long now that I felt so great that sometimes I actually forget. And sometimes the little things like dry skin or, like before I used to always have to file my feet. I don't ever have to do that since being carnivore. So that's definitely a thing. Less earwax. There's just so many different things that aren't really anything that you really want to shout about, but they're all important and they all mean something, and it all shows, I think, all round good health.
Yeah, I totally agree. Stephen Thomas, when we hosted him, he's the UK carnivore, he mentioned athlete's foot and same kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, I forgot. I always used to have athlete's foot. I never get it anymore. And if this is the first time you've ever heard about carnivore, you might be hearing some of these things and be like, come on, athlete's foot, earwax, like give me a break. But once you've been in this space for a long time, you're kind of used to hearing the whole laundry list of like 20 or 30 things that just magically kind of disappear when you're in really good health and eating the right things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing. You hear about people saying about their grey hairs changing back to their original colour and things like that. And actually, when I went to Sardinia in June last year, a friend of mine said, oh, you've got your first grey hair. And when they pulled it out, the root was actually normal colour and the end was grey. So that had changed as well. So that's pretty crazy. Other than that, I don't have any grey hair. But that was the one that was found. So, I find it all very interesting, all the different things, especially for women and their cycle, that the improvements there are major. So that's definitely one to look into and be aware of. But mental health benefits, probably the top of my list, because before I got to a point where I stopped leaving the house, where I was just like making all these different arrangements and then cancelling every single one of them because of anxiety, which is crazy. It's really crazy. Now I'm just like, yeah, let's go. Everyone, let's get out. Let's go do stuff. You know, it's completely different. And before I was kind of existing in my little kind of bubble, but now I get to really live and to live to my fullest, which is nice. I mean, they say that as you age, things start going downhill. I haven't found that since being carnivore, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm quite loud and proud about it, because I do think that it has such an impact on people, and I think other people need to know about that as well.
I agree. I agree. That's why your work is so important, and getting this message out to more people is just absolutely fabulous. And I agree. I think the two of us have that in common, where there's many, many different reasons that I continue with the carnivore diet. But number one on my list is a resolution of anxiety. When I noticed within about 10 days on the diet that my anxiety I didn't really even realize that I had kind of dropped out, and stressful events were not really bothering me anymore. It was incredible. Everything just kind of mellowed out, and it's
Yeah.
not like bliss all the time, but it's just you're able to deal with problems so much easier. You can think about things so much better. That's definitely the top of my list, as well as reasons why I'm on
Yeah.
the diet.
Well, they call it the carnivore calm for a reason, don't they?
Yeah,
And it's a good way of explaining it, because it is that, you can have all these really stressful events thrown at you, but it's easier to manage. Whereas before you might have been having a bit of a breakdown. Now it's just like, okay, so how do I deal with this? And it's more like strategic. I just think that it's just nice to live without brain fog and all them other things that people just think are normal part of being human, but actually they're not. It's because we're all been eating all of those things that we shouldn't be eating, and the bodies just find it really hard to cope.
that's right. It's the difference between average and normal. We think it's normal when really it's just average of what people are experiencing out there. I want to deep dive into your story, but before we do, you mentioned something that I'm very, very curious about. This last year, having another Netflix documentary, come out about the blue zones. I'm always extremely curious to talk to people about the blue zones. Blue zones
Yeah,
are these magical areas where they say people live longer. You were in one. You were in Sardinia. First of all,
yeah.
did you eat any minestrone soup like they all portray in all of these documentaries?
No,
Did you
no. Do you
survive?
know?
What was your diet like?
Yeah, so basically, they have shops everywhere. Along one street, you might have like three or four shops. And every shop you go to, every single shop has meat and cheese, slices of cold meat and slices of cheese. So basically, I would just go to these shops and just get loads of meat and cheese. And then there was a restaurant that there was like a venue that we would go to daily. They just served the best meat, and it was unlimited. It was amazing. It was very meat focused. It's very much part of their culture. It's very clear to see because it's everywhere, meat and cheese. There was even a cheese van that was driving around where the apartments were and stopped outside. And then when they opened the back, they just had a van full of these big chunks of cheese. It was, it's definitely not plant-based. Not at all. Everything is revolved around me, basically. From what I saw, and I was there for 2 weeks.
Wow.
I'm actually going back again in June for 3 weeks. So
Wow.
I definitely survived it, and it was good. And the meat and cheese is really nice there. The dairy is quite nice. Yeah, so I, I can't see that be. I just think it's a bit of a myth, really. I think when they use the term plant-based, it can be so loose because what is plant-based? You can say you're plant-based and include meat and cheese in your diet.
That's right.
It doesn't mean that you're vegan. So yeah, I think it's from what I saw, it's not in their culture to be all about the plants at all.
Yeah, very interesting. We get that same story from pretty much anybody who goes and visits there. Dr. Bill Schindler was there last year as well, in the heart of Sardinia, learning a cheese making technique and a bread making technique. And every house that he went to, for every meal, they would pull out a plate full of meat and cheese. And he said it was awesome. And he was talking with somebody, and they said, "Hey, we're going to have meat today." It was like a Sunday, and they were going to relax on the weekend and have meat. He was like, "You're going to have meat today? Like, what are you talking about? I eat more meat here than I eat at home, and I eat a lot of meat at home. What are you talking about eating meat today?" And that what they were referring to is that was the day they were going to take a whole animal and make a barbecue and roast it and share it around the community. That's what eating meat meant to them. It's not that
Yeah,
they're only one time a
yeah.
week, but they eat meat for every single meal.
Yeah, it's not that they're not eating meat for the rest of the week, but Sundays they're taking it really serious and they're going to go all out.
Yeah, it's a shame though because these documentaries are so well made. They're very convincing. They come from, the funding for them can often comes from dubious sources, and people watch and they see it and they see these elderly people and they look great and they're moving around and they have community and all these wonderful things. And he called it like a bait and switch where they kind of like sneak this plant-based message in and try to convince you that it's because they're eating a plant-based diet that they're like that. And most of these places they're really not even eating that. And
No.
but they make that the central focus and that's what people walk away thinking. So it's a shame.
It is. It's funny how they do have so much funding because even like things like the Game Changers, when that came out, well, that took 7 years to make because all of the athletes they were using kept becoming ex-vegan,
That's right.
so they have to keep moving on to another athlete. Okay, another one, and survival of the fittest at that point from that documentary. But it was just put out in such a way it's just it's cherry picked and pushing an ideology. They've got something in their mind and they want to make sure that they make that seem like that is the way forward. When is it something like 86% of vegans become ex-vegan?
Yeah.
Um, it's a high percentage, and I think 90% of those cite catastrophic health collapse for the reason why they become ex-vegan. So it's the statistics aren't great, and I mean, luckily, although you wouldn't think it because the push is so much and it's so out there, like for veganuary and all that kind of stuff. You would think the population was much higher of veganism, but I think in some countries, like maybe in England, it's about 4%, and in other places, it's like 1 or 2%.
Oh
So,
wow.
um, and I don't know how up to date them numbers are, but the last time I checked, so. Um, it's really not such a big thing, but yet there is still such a massive push for that. And they're saying for the environmental purposes and things like that. And actually, when you look into all of that, it falls flat.
Yeah.
It's an easy sell, eat from the rainbow, all that kind of stuff. Oh, it sounds really lovely and all that. But actually, when you look into it, it's just not true. And, crop farmers kill so much, so many animals, and it's just not the case, unfortunately. For us to eat, something has to die, no matter what you eat,
Yep.
and that's just how it is.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to think about, but the sooner you can, and you can realize that, you start to have much more respect, at least in my opinion, of animals, of plants, of the world that we are a part of, and we are fertilizer for plants at some point, right? Like we're going to go back into the ground, and they're going to use us, and that's just part of the cycle of life. And it is difficult to contemplate, and our egos don't really like to contemplate that, but I think it's important to consider. I'm curious. You being in the United Kingdom, I do listen to a ton of podcasts that are about Formula One. I love Formula One. Obviously, that is mostly based out of the United Kingdom. They tend to mention vegan diets quite a bit as like associated with health. It's just like not their main thing. Obviously, they're talking about car racing, but they bring it up a lot. It seems like the push is pretty strong in the United Kingdom. Would you say that's true?
It is. It is. I remember when my daughter turned 16, she got an email from the BBC and they said, consider going vegan and all this kind of nonsense. They sometimes have people going into schools and saying, for the environment, I want you to stop eating meat or reduce how much meat you eat, all this kind of stuff. But luckily, if you speak to your children enough about how important it is, then they can actually be that voice, the one that stands up and says, actually, it's normally mine that do it, stand up and say, no, meat's really important and, all that kind of stuff. So they're really trying with the next generation. And, sometimes it is working. But then what happens is these people that with every faith in the diet that start it, then eventually their health suffers. And then they have to face the issues with veganism. And then, the next thing is they have to become ex vegan. But that can be really mentally challenging for someone because for however many years they've been doing it, if they've lasted years, they can really condition themselves. And it's almost kind of cult like with the vegan diet. Um, so they condition themselves to say it's the most awful thing. And, from every different angle for the environment, for the animals, and for health. So once they've conditioned themselves so much, I mean, some of them, they're crying when they're eating an egg or something for the first time, but then the egg makes them feel so much better. But it's still a really, really hard mental struggle. And I know Sean Baker started up a Facebook group to help people with that.
Mm.
I can't remember what it's called now, Restoration for Vegan and Vegetarians, something along those lines. Um, so that's a really good one, actually. It's quite eye-opening to see all these ex-vegans that really struggled mentally just to eat something from an animal because they've had so many years of conditioning. And they might have gone and protested and, when they stand with the TVs and things, and they really believe it. Um, so at the time, they're fighting for what they really think is real. And then obviously that's all completely shattered when they realize actually every single part of it is actually just a big lie and it's just really cherry picked. And there's a lot of funding behind it because vegan foods, they can take cheap produce and mark it up just because it's called vegan. Now I go into shops before, if you saw things that were fake leather, um, it would be considered they're going to be really cheap. Well, they put a vegan stamp on it now and they can sell them for a bit more, which is just crazy. So yeah, it's kind of hard. I mean, when I was looking into supplements before, I was looking for a good source of magnesium glycinate. And unfortunately now it's really hard. I haven't managed to find one in a gelatin capsule anymore. They're all vegan friendly,
Wow.
which there's a gap in the market if anyone's listening. Start making the gelatin ones again, because then at least you get a bit of nutrients from the gelatin as well.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. I really appreciate that. And I really like your opinion on some of that stuff. I would definitely want to go back and hear your personal story. How, as we said in the introduction, you ended up accidentally finding carnivore. How did that come about? What was your health like through your 20s and 30s before you eventually found a carnivore diet?
So in my 20s and 30s, I was always considered a really healthy person. I was fit and slim. I was going to the gym all the time. I had everyone wanting to come to the gym with me because I was the one that worked out the hardest and things. I started doing juice detoxes, and I don't know how I managed it, but I did not put two and two together. In the gym, like my hair started falling out. I was blacking out in the gym. I was doing a lot of skipping. So when I was skipping, I was actually my ankle would give way, and then I couldn't walk on my ankle for a couple of weeks. Um, yeah, so I just kept getting all of these different things. I was getting memory loss as well. There's so many things. Like I remember being in the gym with my friend, and actually couldn't see anything. My vision went completely black. I still was like, right, I have to just finish this set. I had some dumbbells in my hands. And then went and sat down because at the time I was doing a juice detox. I went and sat down, and my friend was just like, just eat these. She had like rice cakes and almond spread and stuff like that, almond butter. Um, but yeah, so now I have not experienced any of that anymore. But yeah, so at the time, people still viewed me as this really healthy, amazing kind of person. And then what I did is I went onto a carb cycle plan after that, eating every 2 hours. So it's like 6 meals a day. One day is high fat, next day was medium, and the next day was high carb. And my favorite days were always the high fat. And everyone else was like, really? Mine is always the high carb. I love the high carb. And I said, oh, I find it really hard to eat all of them carbs and how, all that kind of stuff. I did kind of try and zhuzh it up and make it taste nice, but I just didn't enjoy the carbs, funny enough. And then I became pregnant, and for a little while after that, I had some kind of depression and not postnatal depression or anything like that, but it was just depression from some certain situations I had going on. Um, and then one day I just thought, oh, I need to get back to the gym. And I stumbled across keto. I'd known about keto for some years when my cousin had brain cancer, but I didn't understand it back then. So I revisited keto diet anyway and thought, yeah, I'm going to do it. It was the magic pill. I watched the magic pill and I thought, oh, that's a really good one. And it was really interesting about the children that were non-verbal, and then they were
Crazy.
verbal, some of them within 3 days, which is absolutely amazing. And it was calming the children down as well, this diet. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try it. And I put myself and my family on the keto diet. And I did that for 6 months, and it did really help my health. It made me feel much better. But I kept like hearing, like when you're looking at keto stuff, then I was seeing stuff from Dr. Sean Baker. was thinking, this guy's absolutely insane. What is he talking about? Because at the time I was doing net carbs so that I could get the most amount of veg that I could. So my diet was really clean keto. It was literally just meat and veg. And then one day I thought, actually, I'm just going to try it, see if I can, and surely it's going to make me feel bad taking out the veg. And I think 3 days in, I was convinced. I was like, wow, I feel it was like the elevation in my health was amazing. Everything just felt so much better. I was like, it's like keto, but on steroids. It's like so much better. And I felt so good that I was like, yeah, this is my happy place. This is no going back. And so the first week I did the carnivore diet, I lost 7 pounds. And the second week I lost another 7 pounds. And then I didn't really weigh myself after that. But the first couple of months, I was really focused on eating liver because at the time I craved it and I really enjoyed eating it. And it got to a point, maybe like 2 or 3 months in, where I just started to really dislike it. And from then onwards, I haven't actually eaten liver since because I feel like my body needed those nutrients. And then my body was like, actually, you've had enough. You don't need any more. And that's why it kind of changed the way it tasted to me because I enjoyed it before. And then I stopped enjoying it. And actually, someone cooked it for me and I said, oh, I can't eat it. I'm really sorry. I just don't like it. So it's funny how your body tells you what you need and what you don't need at the right times. And I'm a big fan of intuitive eating. And now, so in April, it'd be 5 years that I've been on the carnivore diet.
Wow. That's exactly
It's,
when I started mine.
oh, really? How funny.
April 5 years ago. Yeah. April 2019 was my first time. Yeah.
How funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny what you say about intuitive eating, and I totally agree. You just have to understand the parameters. Like if I'm on a carnivore diet and I'm eating intuitively, it's like one day salmon for whatever reason sounds amazing, and then all of a sudden, like the next day, salmon sounds disgusting. I don't want it for 6 months. Chicken will sound really good. I don't normally eat a ton of chicken, but it sounds really good, and I'll have it. Liver, organs, same thing. If you turned me loose in a grocery store and said you could eat anything in this grocery store, just do it intuitively, I would intuitively eat all of the ice cream and all of the donuts and all the stuff that I got addicted to before.
Yeah.
That was terrible. And so when people say intuitive eating, it's like, yes, if you understand how you can limit such things and know what is food and what is not food, then absolutely you should be very intuitive. And it's really hard as a coach to tell somebody like, oh, you should eat this much beef, you should eat this much chicken and protein and fat ratios. It's like, I honestly don't know what your body's going to feel. So you just have to really kind of feel that out. That's such a good point.
Yeah. I mean, with the intuitive eating, it's funny because all of that other stuff you mentioned, I don't see that as food anymore. So it doesn't even enter into my mind that that could be food. You know, I might as well pick my phone up and eat it instead of that because it's just not food to me. So when I feel like when people get a really good base of being on the carnivore diet for a while, their body knows what they need. And like in the morning, I might get up and I think, actually, I need a bit of fat. I need more salt. You know, I do salt to taste as well. Only drink water when I'm thirsty. I don't over drink water. I think that's a bad idea. Um, yeah, so everything is kind of tailored to what my body's asking for. And because I've got such a good base of giving my body what it needs, it asks for the right stuff. It asks for human foods and not all the junk and all the other stuff. I can have all of that around me and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's amazing how after a few weeks of doing carnivore, that tends to happen. I think a lot of people are really nervous that they think like, oh, I can't go my entire life without having treats or snacks or desserts or whatever. But your taste will really drop out for those things and they will not appeal to you in the same way.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because I've had clients in the past and I'm saying to them, you won't even look at those foods as foods anymore. And they're like, oh, that's not going to happen, Rachel. That is not going to happen. And then a few weeks later, they're like, do you know what? You were right. So, yeah, it is really interesting because the body just does thrive when you're on the carnivore diet. And then that's the cravings, then, you know, when you're eating all of that junk, it's laden with chemicals and all that kind of nonsense to make you addicted. So once you get over that hump of addiction, then it just makes it so much easier because your body then is allowed to just ask for what it needs instead of being addicted to these chemical, you know, nonsense is on the foods otherwise and sugars and things like that. So I think the body is very clever, but you just have to do it. You have to treat it right, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. And I've had the experience of, cheating on the carnivore diet, and you eat things and you remember them tasting a certain way. And you're right, like the chemicals is something that really comes through. Like if I have like a cookie or something, which I never do anymore, but if I had a cookie that I had before and I remember tasting it good, the first thing I taste is like seed oils and chemicals. Like it's such a
Yeah.
strong taste. And when you're eating it all the time, you're not sensitized to that. You don't even taste how disgusting it is.
Yeah, well, recently around Christmas time, I decided I was going to have 2 weeks of just cheating and see what happened and kind of document it. So I did that for 2 weeks, and then the it's crazy how much it changed. So in the beginning, the foods I didn't like the taste of them, but as you keep reintroducing them, then your body starts wanting it. So it's really interesting how even after all those years of being just carnivore and strict carnivore, then the body then starts to kind of want that stuff again because of the makeup of those foods. It's easy to get addicted to. So yeah, so I had 2 weeks of that, and then afterwards I had weight gain. I had, some kind of feeling low in energy, low in mood. Um, I had loads of things like my skin went really bad. I don't usually get psoriasis, and I had psoriasis along my hairline. There was just so many things that actually showed me no, that's not even worth it. I mean, people have asked me to do an experiment of a few weeks of eating meat and veg, just veg, nothing else. But I feel like I don't want to do it to my body just yet. I may do it later on down the line, but definitely not anytime soon. I'm just happy with my carnivore diet. And I feel like it takes the skin a little bit longer to reverse the damage from that kind of junk food.
Wow, that is extremely brave of you to know how good it feels to be on carnivore and to think like going off of it, especially like
No,
full send into junk food. I
yeah.
can't, oh, I'll bet that was terrible.
It was really bad. It was really terrible. And my idea was I was going to document it all and I was going to document how, but to be honest, it kind of took the wind out of my sails. And I just wanted to concentrate on getting back to feeling how I usually do. So I didn't document it as well as I should. And I just did a few posts on it. But so I kind of like wasted that really for the 2 weeks. But I know I would never do that again. There is no one that would convince me to do that again, because my health just really did suffer for that, and there was no gain from it. There's no gain from doing that, so I would just stick firmly to the carnivore diet, and that is it.
Wow. What about the food cravings and hunger? I'm guessing that really kind of sharp, spiky type of hunger would have rushed back in and maybe taken a few days on carnivore to go away. Is that what happened?
I mean, it didn't take long. Once the 2 weeks was up, and I was like, "Oh, good, I'm glad that's over." I didn't touch another thing straight away as soon as that happened. So it didn't take long for the cravings and things to go. Um, but what I'm finding now is dairy. I'm a little bit intolerant to. Whereas before I could have it and be fine, like certain amounts of it. Now, if I eat a little bit of dairy, I get dry skin. So it's kind of like I have to go completely for a little while to undo the damage. And then maybe at a later date, I can start being exactly how it was before. But it's like that intuitive thing, your body needs and what it doesn't need. So I'm just kind of going with it at the moment. Things are pretty much probably 99% back to how they were. I think sometimes I have a little bit of water retention left because that's what I feel like it was before is a lot of water retention. But yeah, definitely not advisable. Definitely do not do that.
Yeah, I'm not sold. I'm not going to try that.
No, 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 don't. Yeah, don't do it.
Oh my
But
goodness.
yeah,
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing those results from your experiment. Like I said, that would be very difficult to get me to want to do that. So I'm glad you did, and glad you're back on it. As a mother, tell us the experience about your children. How has their health and well-being changed? I'm assuming from your change in the diet, their diet's probably inherently changed as well. What was that like?
Yeah, well, my youngest is the one that is kind of the easiest to have on any diet that I'm doing because my eldest is going to be 21 soon. So she works and she buys all of her own food. She actually doesn't stay at home at the moment either. So she does her own thing. But yeah, I mean, we did go through when we was keto, the changes in the health of everyone in the family was absolutely outstanding. It was amazing. And they enjoyed doing the keto alternatives of baking. So that's what was helpful for them. But my youngest, he literally like in the morning, I say, "What do you want for breakfast?" And he's like, "Oh, chicken wings." And, he might have, or he'll have bacon, or sometimes he'll have sausages. He went through a phase of having sausages every morning, and then he went off that. Then he's on bacon, and then chicken wings. He just loves them. He can't get enough of chicken wings, so he will have those like all day long, and he's fine. But he is very healthy, very active. He always has had quite a lot of meat in his life anyway, so it's not like it's majorly different. When he goes and stays at grandparents' houses, they kind of give him stuff that I don't. So so he knows what those tastes are, unfortunately.
Mm.
Um, but he's got a really good all round kind of view of everything, and he knows that meat is the base, and that is the most important thing. He's very healthy, and like sometimes I can see little abs popping through and stuff, So there's no issues with him, and he is literally full of energy from the minute he wakes up to the minute he goes to sleep.
Wow.
So
Wow. That's
he's
amazing.
yeah, it's all round very good. Definitely no issues. And he's really good. And he did when I was eating a lot of liver, he was also eating a lot of liver as well, which with the others I would have to sneak it into their food, but with him he would just eat it
Wow.
straight up. So I think the younger you get in there with them, the better it is, and the easier that it is. Unfortunately, I had a bad diet years ago, before changing. So I used to bake cakes with the kids and things, and they did really love that. Um, but it's kind of like, they can get kind of stuck on that emotional attachment to things like that. And I think it's really important not to have that emotional attachment to food because that makes it too easy for binging and eating the wrong stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. You mentioned the magic pill, which I highly recommend. And you mentioned that the child's behavior who's featured in the TV show. And I believe it was autism. Was she struggling with autism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
there was two children, wasn't there, with autism in that one?
Yeah. Okay. This child, I mean, this child was a complete nightmare disaster. It sounds rude to say, but like her behavior was terrible, and she was eating snack foods all day. Her poor parents looked like they were at their wits' end. Like they look so. It was just so hard to contain this child, and there definitely was a transition period where she did not want to eat steak. I believe is what they were cooking her, and she would throw it all over the place, and she hated it and wanted her snack foods. And after like a week or two, she started craving the steak, and she was inhaling it. She turned into like a steak vacuum, and her temperament was totally different. She just calmed right down. She could sit down and listen and watch something and be totally chill. Did you notice that same kind of transition for the kids to the point where the kids were like self-selecting the meat? They wanted the meat. They didn't miss the sweets. They don't care about what other kids are getting at a football game or whatever. Like, did you notice them like kind of adapting to that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, mine have all of my children. So to say that I used to, bake and stuff with them, but their diet was actually very good. Much better than standard people feed their children. So it was all fresh, all homemade kind of stuff. But yeah, it's funny because if you give them a lot of sweets, then they want a lot of sweets. Like my youngest, he didn't have any kind of taste for any sugar. I think he was like a year and a half when someone gave him something, which is unfortunate. But he never was addicted to sweets. Like he didn't even want them. He would choose the savory over any sweets. And he's still now, if someone gives him something, he might, have a little bit and then he'll leave the rest. He's really not so hooked and focused on it, and he can take it or leave it kind of thing. But yeah, the grandparents are the ones that kind of get in there with that one. Even if you tell them, don't give them this, this, and this, it's kind of what grandparents do, isn't it?
It's kind of what they do. Yeah. And that video is seems to be circling around again of I want to say it's like a 6 month old who's getting the first taste of ice cream. And the face of this child is
Oh, yeah, it's
crazy,
sad.
crazy.
Yeah, it's really sad. I think if I was to be able to rewind time, then I just wouldn't give them anything at all. It would just be meat based, meat and dairy, and that's it. I wouldn't actually give them anything else. And then I think that gives them a really good base when they're older to decide what they want and what they don't. And I think most parents that would start like that would find that their children would make better choices, and they would go for the foods that actually are food. And I think when I've seen families that raise their children like that, that's exactly what they see. Their children, even if they do at a party taste a bit of cake or something, they're like, oh, they don't love the taste like other children. So I think getting in there young with the children is really important. I mean, when I was breastfeeding my children, I remember the lady saying to me, the midwife, saying to me, "Oh, it doesn't matter what you eat as long as you get enough calories. So you can eat chocolate bars all day if you want. That's fine." That is just got to be some of the worst advice. And
Terrible.
you know, she's actually advising people that are new parents, and I just think that that's pretty much it's quite a crime, really, to think that that would have such a big impact on their lives. And when you've just had a baby, you're tired, and sometimes you're too tired to cook. And then you've got someone telling you can just have chocolate. Well, if you've got chocolate there, you might then just grab the chocolate and eat that instead of something nutritious. And there's a lady that I was following before who was a breastfeeding mother, and I've never seen so much milk. The milk, she was having to actually donate her milk. She had so much, and the cream on top was so thick, and the actual milk. Um, sometimes breast milk can be quite translucent, but hers was really thick. The
Wow.
quality looks amazing. So don't listen to anyone that tells you that it doesn't matter, that calories are the be all and end all. It's really not.
Wow. That's crazy that advice is given out there. It's insane.
Yeah.
So your handle on Instagram, Carnivore Fitness. Tell us about the components of fitness that you bring into your life that work really, really well for this kind of lifestyle.
So I really I love resistance training. I've always done that. When I was younger, my dad was a competitor and he used to compete in bodybuilding and stuff. So I've always been around the gym, and he owned his own gym as well. Always been in and around gyms. So that's my happy place. But I've also introduced yoga as well, which is actually really nice. I didn't realize how um just how I wasn't so flexible because of the years of weight training and not stretching. I literally go in, train, and then come out. And the nice thing is, when you're carnivore, you can just train. I could train legs every day if I wanted to, and that's fine because you don't get really bad DOMs. So you can kind of work yourself a lot harder than average, when you're normal. And I get people saying like, wow, like I see you in here and you're training really hard. And actually when I'm training legs, I train heavier than a lot of people in the gym. And everyone's really surprised and shocked and saying, oh, be careful kind of thing. But it's just what happens. But I found a massive increase in strength from going from keto, well, my normal diet and keto. I didn't really find an increase in strength when I went keto, but when I went carnivore, massive increase in strength.
Yeah.
And I find that really helpful.
Interesting. Yeah, you hear that a lot. That carnivore diet pairs really well, specifically with any kind of movement based activity.
Mhm.
So whether that's walking, yoga, light cycling, just getting out and moving, it seems to work really well with, and it also seems to work really, really well with resistance training. Why doesn't it not tend to work so well with like chronic cardio, like getting on a treadmill and running and sweating and breathing hard for an hour?
Well, the studies show actually when you're doing that, the cardio excessively like that, you're actually reducing your metabolism. So your body adjusts. It's like, okay, so all of this exercise is happening with the cardio. So we're going to lower the metabolic rate so that, so that you don't starve and die kind of thing. You don't use up all your resources. Um, so I actually don't do cardio at the gym ever. I actually don't remember the last time I did cardio. I know years ago when I was doing the juice detoxing, I used to do like Tabitha training where
Mm.
you're running for like 20 seconds and you get, is it 20 seconds on, 5 seconds off?
Something
And
like
then
that,
you're running
10, 20,
again.
yeah.
Yeah. And that was more fun, but it kind of doesn't elevate you physically. And I think with the resistance training, the more muscle mass you have, it's shown to be anti-aging. It's shown to mean that you can actually burn more fat. There's so many benefits to it, and obviously you're strengthening your bones at the same time. There's just a lot, and actually I find that people's mental health is really helped with resistance training alone. um, I don't find that with people that are running on a treadmill. I may find that with people that are going for long walks outside, that could be the same result. But with running on a treadmill, I don't find a resolve with mental health issue and stuff like that. And actually, when the studies are showing that it's going to reduce the metabolism, it's kind of like, do you want to really overdo that? You see some women that have been going to the gym for years and they go in there and they're doing the, all of the cardio equipment and they stay the same year in, year out. And
Yep.
it's really quite sad. They
Yep.
could actually just really get stuck in. I think for some people, it's really intimidating the weights. You feel like maybe people are watching to see if you're getting it right, getting it wrong. For those people, maybe they just need to actually get a PT or someone that will show them what to do on the different machines. And then they can have their own little routine and they can go in there and some people find it helpful to write stuff down. I don't usually write stuff down. I have been following a plan recently, so on that plan they tell you to write it down, so I've been following that. But apart from that, no, I normally just go in, train. And I've been very fortunate that my dad's been able to teach me all the different things in the gym. So, and obviously he was really on top of his game when he was training before, so
Ahead of his time.
um yeah, so that made my life there easier. And actually, if I've never been anxious or anything in a gym, that's always where I feel the most comfortable because I don't care if people are looking at me or anything. Even when I was really big, well, actually, no, I did use when I was really big because I did gain. I forgot to mention that in my story. I gained quite a bit of weight when I was depressed after having my youngest child, and what I used to do is go to the gym at 4 a.m. because I didn't want anyone to see me
Uh,
looking so out of shape because I was known as the one that was in shape and all that kind of stuff. So I'd be mortified if someone saw me. So but yeah, no, normally day to day going to the gym, I don't care. I'm not worried about anyone looking or anything. I just go and do what I need to do and then get out. And it always makes me feel better after.
Yeah, totally agree. There's so many good practical tips in there. The metabolism thing is super important. That was my entire career. For over a decade, I was using metabolic carts to actually measure people's metabolic rates. And sure enough, if you did any kind of calorie restricted diet, and especially when you paired it up with chronic cardio, your metabolic rate would be lower and lower and lower and lower. And you're typically, depending on how you worked out, your metabolism could shift more towards burning carbohydrates and away from burning fat, which is really not great. And after a while, like we hardly needed to even run the test. When somebody was walking up the stairs to come and do the test, I could just look at them and see like, okay, this woman is wearing a jacket in July. You could tell she's cold. She might be lean in her arms and legs, but she might be carrying a little bit more midsection. That is somebody who has a reduced metabolic rate. Guarantee they're doing way too much cardio or they're under eating or eating the wrong things. So we were able to validate that and measure it. And, I love walking outside. I'll only walk inside if the weather's really crappy around here in the valley. On a snowy day, I'll go over to my community center and walk around a track at my community center. And it's nice because it's adjacent to the weight room. So I'll maybe do like 5 or 10 laps and then I'll go and do a set of strength training to failure. And I'll go and walk a few more laps and do another set of training to failure. And there's this one woman who keeps coming in exactly the way you described. I've seen her for the last 3 years coming into this spin bike, ripping the cranks off this spin bike, going as hard as she possibly can. I can't say whether her goal is weight loss or not, but I can say her body has not changed one little tiny bit in all the years. And you think of all that hard work doing what she thinks
Yeah,
is probably the best thing. And it's like, oh, I wish I
so
could convince
sad.
you to try something different.
I feel like that. I mean, for me, that kind of stuff is really boring. And I just love lifting weights. And, when you progress and you're able to then get a new PB, a new personal best, that feels good. That does feel good. It's not that you have to show off about it or anything like that, but it does just feel good. It's a sense of achievement, going up in weights and stuff. And that's the nice thing, even if you have a little break and you go back, then you can kind of have that nice newbie kind of feeling again where you're climbing up in the weights. And each week you're able to achieve new. When you kind of have been training for quite a while, it's harder to get higher and higher. Obviously, we've all got our kind of maximum capabilities.
Yep, definitely have a ceiling on that. Yeah, you
Mm.
mentioned mental health as well, and I notice that every place that has the treadmills also has the TVs that has all of the worst news and the stock markets and political elections, and like just that alone is enough to induce anxiety. It's
Yeah,
terrible. Go outside, go outside and look at some
yeah,
birds.
exactly. Yeah, go outside and be in nature. I think not a lot of people, not enough people do that anymore. Everyone's kind of cooped up and doing all these different unnatural things. Too much screen time.
Yep, I agree. I agree. So far we've learned about nourishing our bodies by eating the right foods, but it turns out also we can be using the right skincare to help feed our skin as well. Tell us about how you came across tallow as a good product for skin.
So in the beginning, I was using coconut oil, and I thought that that was really good, but it was actually giving me like these little white spots. But then I heard about using lard, so I moved on to using lard, and that actually made my skin nice, but I didn't like the smell. And then I thought, okay, so I tried tallow. So I tried tallow, and I've got it to a point where you render it and it's pretty much scentless. And the consistency is really nice. And what I found is once I was using that often, a lot of people were saying, wow, like, what have you done to your skin? And I was getting all these compliments. And obviously, the carnivore diet helps with skin as well. Um, but yeah, so I was using that for a year or two, and then people kept saying, "Oh, can you make me some? Can you make me some?" And then I thought, okay, and I put a little poll out on my Instagram to say if I was to make some, would anyone be interested in buying it? And there were so many yeses that I thought, okay, let's try something. So I went straight to designing stickers and looking for the right labels, everything in my range for Tallow Glow, which has developed from me just enjoying having nice skin. And obviously, regular skincare is absolutely horrific. It's going to disrupt your hormones. There's just a lot of things in there that never need to be anywhere near our bodies. And obviously, the skin, it does absorb. And it goes into your bloodstream and things. You really do have to be mindful what you're putting on your skin, not only what you're putting in your mouth. Yeah, so I came about this idea for Tallow Glow, found decided on a name, and just what I wanted is everything to be non-toxic. So the tubs that they're in are glass. Um, I was a bit of a perfectionist, so it took me a little while to get everything together. Once I started selling it, that went really well. I sent some to Dr. Anthony Chafee, and he loved those. Um, Dr. Sean Baker's tried those as well. When he was over, he came to Sheffield to public health collaboration. And so we all went to this big thing anyway, and so he tried some, and he said he liked it, and we spoke about that on his podcast as well. Yeah, so basically, just everyone that's tried it has had some people have had really dramatic results. I've had people messaging me saying, "Wow, Rachel, I had this one particular customer sticks in my mind. This lady, she said that she was using it for I don't know, a few months, and she said that she had a big wrinkle on her forehead going down to her eye, and she said it completely got rid of it,
Wow.
which is amazing. which is amazing. It's nothing short, short of amazing. And the fact that it's non-toxic. So there's a lot of tallow companies out there that put a carrier oil in their tallow. Um, but I don't do that. Mine's just 100% tallow. And then if you want it scented, it will have the pure organic essential oils added to that. But other than that, mine's just tallow. I do a salt scrub as well, which has got 3 different salts in it for all the different health benefits. And I do a lip balm, which is just like a set version of the tallow. But yeah, it's doing really well. It's worldwide. I've got people, I mean, there's so many different countries that actually order the tallow now. It's pretty amazing. I'm really happy with the way things are going. I'm really happy with the feedback. I haven't had any bad feedback so far.
Wow.
So um, I find that tallow is really good for your skin. I don't find that it breaks me out. I find that actually it's really helpful for breakouts. It's really helpful for eczema. It's helpful for psoriasis, for rosacea. I've now started making a healing balm, and that's got something in it called colloidal silver. Colloidal silver is absolutely amazing for healing the skin. So if you get a cold sore, for instance, but before you get the cold sore, you get a tingle. If you put that on, then the cold sore won't come out. It will not develop.
Wow.
So it's really effective. If you've got it too late and the cold sores come out, it will be greatly reduced with using the healing balm. So yeah, so far so good. People are sending me pictures of their eczema that's completely, when they're having an eczema flare, they use the tallow glow and that brings it right down. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way it's going, and I think it's amazing for your skin.
Wow. Having the approval of Dr. Baker and Dr. Chafee is a pretty good start, I would say. Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad. Is it also
Yeah.
good for hair?
Yes, I do. So I quite like using the peppermint version on my hair and scalp. So I do have some people that use it for, like, I had a lady who messaged me and said they started using it instead of gel in their son's hair, just like a little bit, and you put it through. But yeah, I feel like using it as a hair treatment, the peppermint especially is really nice. You can leave it on overnight and then wash it off in the morning, and your hair becomes really soft. It's so good for the scalp. Um, yeah, I find it really effective. I mean, I use it everywhere, and I have people that buy it actually for their babies and have been using it since their babies have been newborn. So it's good for every age, every stage. It's just nice because you don't have to worry about if there's any toxic ingredients in it, because there's not. It's completely toxin free.
Interesting. Now you are making this, and assumedly you started making this at home. Is this terribly difficult to learn if somebody wanted to try to make it on their own?
Yeah, I mean, you can look up videos on YouTube. I use the wet method for rendering, and that to purify it and get the smells and get any impurities out of the tallow. It's a long process, and if you want to get it so it's really a really good finish, it does take a long time. Even with the mixing, I mix mine for a lot longer than a lot of other people would, because I like the consistency that I get in the end. It makes it so there's less product, because when you start whipping it, it goes really big. The more you whip it, then it goes a little bit smaller, but it's a really nice consistency.
Yeah, somebody gave me some of their products. Serena Music gave me some of hers that she makes, and she makes a whipped tallow butter as well. And yeah, it feels amazing. And I do notice that compressing, where it's like really whipped up and kind of quite smooth in the beginning, and it compresses a little bit, but the texture is just so nice. And to put it, underneath my eyes or on my skin or after I shave it is really nice. And so it's cool that you do that. Where are you selling your product? Is it specifically just through Instagram?
At the moment, it's just through Instagram, but I am looking to change that. I'm going to set up something but I'm just working out which platform is the best at the moment. I have 3 different people that actually want to stock it. So I'm working on that as well. But obviously, as things develop, then I just let everyone know
That's great.
as and when. But yeah, oh, the other thing that I've heard people use it for is their beard. Apparently, it makes the beards really nice. So that's another use.
Interesting.
There's so many people would just message me and say, "Oh, I used it for this, and I use it for this." When I went to Sardinia, myself and my friends, it's the only thing we used, and it just gave us such a deep, dark tan.
Wow.
I've never been so dark before, ever. Yeah, so it did. I mean, it has a natural SPF of 4, which is a low SPF, so some people would want it higher than that, and I'm looking into a non-toxic SPF version to make. But for now, I was really happy with using that when I was on holiday, and it made my skin really nice. And even with things like the bites that I was getting out there, I had my healing balm and I was putting that on, and that was really helpful for that.
Wow, that's interesting. I don't know what the laws are like in the United Kingdom, but the United States, you can't say that something has an SPF unless it's a chemical. So you can't technically say that coconut oil has an SPF of, I want to say, somewhere between 4 and 8. You can't say that unless it's got chemicals in it. It is insane.
That's insane. The only thing that drives is sales.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's that. Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I need to look into that then. I don't know if the laws are like that out here. I haven't heard that they are. But
it's so silly. I remember learning about that, and like some of these ingredients that come in like sunscreen that people buy that have SPF are carcinogenic when heated up. So think about that. You're putting these chemicals on and going out in the sun. Like that's not great.
No, it's not. Well, I think it hasn't. Some sunscreens have been around since something like the 1940s, something like that.
Yeah.
And when you look at the charts there's been such a spike of skin cancer, and I'm not saying that it's that fault, I'm not saying that that is the cause, but it's interesting that since that's come up and everyone's using those sunscreens, but there's been a major rise in skin cancer.
Yep, definitely. And I think most people know if they start eating carnivore, their sun tolerance goes through the roof. You can stay out all day and never get a burn like you used to. It's so much better to be eating the right things and putting the right things on our skin.
100%. Yeah, I completely agree.
Well, we've talked blue zones, we've talked diet, we've talked exercise, we've talked skincare. This has been an awesome conversation. I very much enjoyed chatting to you today. Where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you in your work and find your products?
So you can find me at carnivore.fitness on all socials. But for Tallow, for the Tallow Glow, it's at tallow.glow, and that's just mainly on Instagram. And that's where you'll find me. And hopefully I'll be able to share with everyone very soon of a new website to make it much easier.
Awesome. Well, when you do, if you go down that route, just make sure you send us a link and we'll add it to the show notes. We'll put the Instagram links down there. But yeah, if you ever do like a store front or whatever online, just let us know and we'll add a link for that. And also, just to clarify, you are shipping these to the United States as well?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes. Yeah, quite often actually.
Oh, good.
more often than not. Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. Well, Rachel, this has been an awesome conversation. Like I said, thank you so very much for your journey and for teaching us all about the things that you've helped to improve your own life that are then going to improve the lives of your family and all the people out there. So really appreciate you and taking the time to be on our show today. It was an awesome chat.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been fun.
It's been a lot of fun. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio. Thank you so very much for continuing to listen to Boundless Body Radio. As 2023 has come to a close and we're starting another new year in 2024, I always try to reflect on not only the direction that we want to go in the future, but also how much we have grown in this last year. Our podcast has now generated well over 400,000 downloads from all over the world, and it's all thanks to fantastic listeners like yourself. I hope you are as excited for the new year as we are around here. The lineup of guests that we have coming up is absolutely staggering, and we're always striving to bring you the best content from the most amazing people in health, nutrition, and wellness. Remember that you can always head on over to our website to book a complimentary 30-minute session with us at myboundlessbody.com. On our homepage, there is a Book Now button where you can select a time to speak with us about your health and fitness plan, especially for the new year. We've absolutely loved chatting with so many of you out there to bounce ideas off each other and try to come up with plans to help you achieve specific goals. And seriously, I really do mean this. Even if it's just to say hello and introduce yourself, we absolutely love connecting with our listeners in the community. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel as well if you want to watch these full interviews and also shorter interviews on more specific topics that are taken from these interviews. We've gotten really great feedback over there, and it's also a really fun way to interact with people who comment. We read and reply to every single YouTube comment we get, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and leave as many comments as you like to keep the conversation going. And of course, if you haven't already, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It really is the best way to make sure that the podcast gets out to more listeners. Your 5-star ratings and reviews are the best way to support us here at Boundless Body, and to support the podcast at Boundless Body Radio really only takes a moment, and it's very meaningful to us. Cheers to 2024, and thank you again for listening to Boundless Body Radio.